Korean students have is hard to find in other foreign students? Like,
Koreans are able to laser focus and just drive to that goal. The professor doesn't tell you exactly, let's get there together, but it's so safe here. Son, like who's 17, he was in Seoul, he missed the last bus. Oh, I'm stuck in Seoul. You know what we tell him? Good luck.
Figure it out.
Figure it out.
안녕하세요. 어썸코리아 구독자 여러분. 미국에서 온 조엘입니다. 자, 오늘 University of Utah 송도 아시아 캠퍼스 와 있는데요. 자, 오늘 대표님 만날 수 있을까요? 한번 들어가서 볼까요?
네.
Oh, hi.
Oh,
hi.
hi.
I'm Joel. Nice to meet you.
Joel.
From Awesome Korea.
Thank you for coming.
Nice
Nice to meet you. I'm Greg Hill.
Greg, nice to meet you.
Yeah, come on in.
Wow. It smells kind of like America, which is a good smell. It's a smell that I haven't smelled in a while.
Yeah, it's a mix of America
Yeah.
and Korea. Just
Fusion,
like what we do.
cultural fusion.
Cultural fusion.
Wow,
yeah.
this is a huge
Oh,
office.
man, thanks. It's
Wow, this is great. Wow, okay. So this was your conference room?
Yeah, so a conference room over here, old
Okay.
small meetings, whatever. So,
Oh.
And then this side where all the boring work happens.
There's a standing desk. This is a power office. It's a power office. Have you had lunch yet?
I haven't. Should we go?
Yeah, I heard that this campus's food is really good.
We have a cafeteria on
Okay.
campus. You're going to love it, especially if you haven't had cafeteria food for a
I haven't
while.
had cafeteria food in a while, and I look forward to seeing it,
Yeah.
hearing it, and eating it.
Let's do it.
All right. So looking forward to having like school food again.
Yeah.
I haven't had like Korean like school food in so long. When you're in college, you can get lunch for like $2.
I know. Well, in here, I mean, it's like 5,000 won.
Yeah.
But they do a 1,001 breakfast for students here. So if you apply, and I have 2 kids in college now, and like we go and visit them in the cafeterias. They're not so much cafeterias as they are like small food malls now. For breakfast, there's all cereals you could possibly want. For lunch, there's hamburger
Big
bars.
sausages and omelets and just everything. You know?
So good.
The meal plans in the States are really expensive.
Yeah.
They're like almost unreasonably expensive. You know?
But here, I mean, kids can eat cheap food. Or not expensive food, but still
Yeah.
really, really good.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So this is a legit cafeteria style
Yeah.
here.
This has got to be the biggest rice paddle I've ever seen.
Lots here, huh?
Spinach.
Spinach looks like, yeah. This one we know.
All right. 잘 먹겠습니다.
Yeah, 잘 먹겠습니다.
대표님.
So this is 된장찌개, right?
I think so.
Looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the first time I had 된장찌개. I'd never experienced anything like this in the United States,
yeah.
right?
It's,
And it was just like this rush of flavor that I just was so overwhelming.
Sensory overload.
So overwhelming, yeah.
And the people ask me sometimes, like, if you could quit American food or Korean food, which one would you quit? Honestly, I don't think I could live without Korean food
Oh.
at this point.
Well,
I'll
that's
give
one
up
of-
pizza and hamburgers if I have to. I don't care.
One of the things we love most about here is the food and just like the sheer volume of it.
Oh, yeah.
And so many options. And
Yeah. If I live in the States, I'm like, I mean, whenever I do go back to the States, I don't know what to eat because, like, you got, like, pizza,
yeah.
hamburgers. Like, that's pretty much it. American food culture is very, I think, not as dynamic as Korean food. Because you got, like, steak and potatoes and, or, like, mashed potatoes
Right.
and whatever, chicken breast or, it's like very...
And you bring all sorts of different cultural foods together,
Right.
nothing that you own
Yeah,
is
yeah.
yours, right? I mean,
It's all brought
like
from
it's a
somewhere
burger
else.
or a steak or something like that. But when people come and visit us from the States, we take them out, and I mean, most of the experience is eating, right? It's so good. And every time it's the same thing. Like, I knew I like bulgogi and I like kimchi, but I had no idea there was this vast array of food that you could have. And every one of them, like, man, this is so good.
I feel like a lot of foreigners, though, they feel very intimidated. They stick to pretty much samgyeopsal,
Yeah.
bulgogi.
Yeah.
They really don't venture out too far out of that. But like when you do, you got like naengmyeon
So
and
good.
like all everything.
Love it. No. Ever eat when I was first here, which was like chukumi bibimbap.
Oh right, okay, with the little octopuses.
Yeah, it was like my favorite thing. I love it.
It wasn't too spicy for you? Are you good at eating spice?
I like spice.
Yeah, okay.
So, but yeah, it is spicy.
Did you find kimchi to be spicy when you first came?
When I the first time I had kimchi, I'll never forget this. Just got here, ate it plain, someone said, just try it. I thought I was going to die.
Really?
And then I thought I was going to starve to death because I didn't really like it. Right? I was like, I don't know how I could do this. It's so spicy. It's just this different flavor that I never had before. And so for like the first few weeks, I was just like, oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Got hungry and realized I gotta either go all in on this or it's gonna be a terrible couple of years. And so, and I love it now. And even when I went back to the States, I had it. We always had a jar of kimchi in our house.
That's when I went back to the States. Like my brother lives in the States and he doesn't know how to make kimchi, so he buys it. He buys it at like Costco or something, right? But it's expensive.
But the process is a labor of love. I don't know how to make it either. I've made it since I've been here. We've done kimjang. But I don't know how to do it. But when I was in the States, we would usually find like a little Korean mom and pop store in one of the big cities. So, and interestingly enough, Salt Lake City has a fairly robust Korean population. They just opened an H Mart, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
So it's a thing down there, and so you could always go find it in Salt Lake if you couldn't find it anywhere else.
You know, if you ever try to go and eat Korean food in the States, it is so expensive.
So expensive,
like,
yeah.
Almost unreasonably expensive.
We would go to a Korean restaurant and get a bowl of kimchi jjigae, $16.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, how can that possibly be? Like this is, we talk all the time about it when we go back to the States. The food is probably one of the things we'll miss the most. It's so good.
I could never quit it.
Yeah.
It's womb to the tomb for me with this. So how long have you been in Korea?
So I came to Korea in June of 2020 this time.
Oh, okay. And for the long haul, do you enjoy living here?
I love living here. Yeah, when we first came, we came on a 3-year contract for 3 years and head back to the States. But we just love living here. I mean, everything about Korea is, I mean, there are things about it that are crazy, but there's so much to love.
Yeah.
And the job is so unique and interesting. I mean, the job is way better than I ever could have possibly imagined. Trying to run a U.S. university in Korea.
It's a very unique thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, to have a whole campus from an American university.
Yeah. You know, servicing both the Korean population and international population and mixing of cultures between the two countries and the universities. And so it's been just a really interesting challenge professionally, but an amazing opportunity. And to watch our students, like this whole experience for our students is just inspiring. I mean, these guys are taking classes, everything's done in English. So, the classes are done in English, the advising, the clubs, everything.
The students that go to the central campus in the United States, do they have an option to come here and study for like a year? Is that kind of like how it works?
If you enroll full-time with us, you do 3 years on this campus, then 1 year in Salt Lake City. We're called an extended campus, so it's the same degree. So whether you go here or Salt Lake, the courses travel across borders without any trouble.
Okay.
And then students who are enrolled in Salt Lake can come to us for a semester or for a year for like a learning abroad experience.
It's still all the same curriculum.
Exactly,
stuff, so,
yeah.
Okay.
One of the coolest programs we have is we get students who have maybe never had a learning abroad, an overseas experience before or something, and they enroll in a program where their campus in Salt Lake City, their first semester is in Salt Lake and their second semester is here. Early on, they get an experience of a global experience. They get a chance to fight their way through the subway system, or how do I navigate in a place where I don't understand the language. When they get back to Salt Lake, they're different people. Like they've experienced something different. And these are folks who may never have traveled outside of Salt Lake or Utah, right? I mean, they never had a passport. Some of them, it's their first plane ride. And so it's this really like eye-opening experience. And that's part of the reason why I love it here is you just get this really, you get to see these students just grow right in front of your eyes. It's fantastic.
What was the reasoning for choosing Korea? There's so many countries in the world, Is there a specific reason?
Our entrance into this process maybe predated the Korean explosion by a couple of years, Our University of Utah has a long relationship with Korea. Just after the Korean War, a lot of Korean top-level bureaucrats were going overseas to get degrees. They started landing at the University of Utah, and in the late 50s, there was a guy who went to get a chemistry degree, and he worked with a famous chemist at the University of Utah, and they became research partners, and then he got a job at the U, and it just became sort of this pipeline, kind of a base of Korean support here for the University of Utah. The University of Utah was looking at the global perspective of education, saying how can we engage more globally? When Songdo came to us, and when Korea came and said, hey, we'd like to present this opportunity, the University of Utah was ready to jump. And then in 2014 is when we started offering classes here. Yeah, we started with 14 students. But it was like it was a big leap of faith.
Do you find that there's a lot of interest for students that are studying in America to come to Korea?
Yeah.
Maybe even too much interest?
We have found recently, in fact, there's so much interest in it that we've hired a full-time recruiter in the United States just for this campus.
Wow.
So we get a lot of interest because there is so much interest in the United States for people to come to Korea.
Right.
And students want to come and study in Korea, because we offer it in English, it's real soft landing.
Right.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
they can come over, they can get a US education, they can do it in English, but then get the sort of full round experience of living in Korea.
What about the Korean students that applied to here?
We offer 9 different degrees. And part of that strategy is what is it that Korean students are interested in? So engineering, obviously.
There's a big one.
Big one. We opened an electrical and computer engineering program 3 years ago.
Okay.
And we're maxed out every semester.
Really?
It was amazing. We opened some business degrees, but the one we most recently opened and we think is really going to take off is our bachelor's degree in games. And Utah's is the #1 ranked bachelor's degree in games in the States. And so when we opened it here, you see this explosion. Man, I'm so excited about it. When we look at the students who are coming, why are they choosing to do a U.S. education in here? They want to stay in Korea. They want to stay, live, work, not unlike you, right? They want to have that experience here, but they want a Western style education.
Right.
So we fill that niche really well. And then many of them, most of them, when they're graduating, are coming back to Korea. Some of them are staying in the States, but most are coming back, which we think is great. You know, we love it.
The education system in general, like, do you find anything that's like you can pinpoint as like a big difference between the two systems of education?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because one of our students first arrived. In the U.S. perspective of higher education, much of it is dialogue-based. You know, it's critical thinking, it's engagement, pushing boundaries. It's kind of most of our Korean students who come to us, especially if they come through a traditional Korean model, it's less of that, and it's more like focused learning and study hard and learn what's being taught. And so we've had to try to kind of merge those two perspectives. So when our students first come, it's kind of an eye-opener when the faculty member says, "Hey, Joel, what do you think about this?" For most students, they're like, "Right, wait a minute. I feel differently about that." We bring that into the classroom, and for some students, it's very easy transition. For others, it's a little bit more challenging, but you know, by the end of their first year, they're all in, and so it becomes this really engaging classroom experience merged with sort of the historical Korean ethos of study hard, work hard, you know, drive towards the end. And so I think both cultures lift the experience for the student. And then we have faculty from all over the world. I think right now we have faculty from 16 different countries, I think, and like incredible global citizen perspective. So you get students in the class that are from the US and here, maybe they're on a 1 year or they're enrolled full time. You get the Korean students here. We have students from Mongolia who are bringing their perspective, from the Philippines, from Africa. So you get this classroom experience that you can't get anywhere else. Even at a US university, because of the scale and size, you just don't have this diversity in the experience. We're actively recruiting international to add more of that. That's where we're looking, like more international, more global, but with the same sort of rigor that you would expect at a top-tier U.S. university. So,
do you think that Korean students have something that is hard to find in other foreign students? Like,
Koreans are able to laser focus and just drive to that goal. And as long as that goal is well defined, they can get there. And it's usually a pretty straight, and to some degree our other sort of Southeast Asian students, a little more okay with the meandering process, you know, like whether that's an intellectual process. And it's okay if the professor doesn't tell you exactly, let's get there together. I think Koreans are a little more uncomfortable with that, I think. But it's this thing that makes them also really successful in programs, like need that, like I'm gonna focus in on this and I'm gonna get there and
pinpoint, just do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's been, you know, I think the Korean students really add that sort of drive, and I don't know if it comes from a history of.
I feel like it would. How fast and how successful Korea was at building itself up from basically nothing. You know, even 30 years ago, Korea was nowhere near what it is like now. You know what I mean? 하면 된다. That's like a thing in Korea. It means like you just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
You just gotta do it. Doesn't matter how you get there, just do it.
Yeah.
You know. So I kind of live by that mantra.
No, it's good. I mean, it's good. One of the things we're trying to introduce is that the straight lines are super important and they're really, really effective. But it's okay to broaden. Right? It's okay to wander the path a little bit. It's okay to live in ambiguity in the classroom. It's hard. It's hard, especially if you're not used to it. But it's okay if we can introduce some of that uncertainty. I think the students of today are less interested in that. Like, I'm going to graduate, then I'm going to go work at one of the top 5. I'm going to work my way up this path until I retire. Right. But more like, I've got some ideas and I want to start a business, or I'm going to move around with careers and things that students of previous eras were much less comfortable.
In America, when you are a college student, you don't really have any kind of relationship with your professor. At least I did.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just kind of go to class and that's it. But here, do you find that the mannerisms that Korean students kind of display to their professors or just to faculty in general is different than American or Western students?
Much more formal, like a Korean student to a professor.
Right.
We've tried to create here a very student-friendly environment. We try to create this friendly environment for our students. The Korean students are often a little more differential. They're a little more, when they come to talk.
Well, speaking of students, like, has there been any particular student or like something that happened that like you really remember?
Had some amazing things happen here. We did a film festival.
Oh.
And so one of our students created this film. It was about her experience when she went to Salt Lake City.
Okay.
For all of us, we're like, oh yeah, sure, we'll go there. We provide support. You go do your classes, everything's good. Through the film, she was able to show like deep loneliness that you feel, and even though you're surrounded by 35,000 students, you're kind of all by yourself, and it's just this. So it was this really eye-opening moment, and our university president from Salt Lake was here, and a bunch of the leadership team, and for them, it was really interesting because interact with them that much.
Right.
I remember we're sitting in the theater at Megabox. They screened them at Megabox. It was super fun for the students, and everybody sat there when it was done and went, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." And so that's one that's
Wow.
kind of an
so
like
one
an emotional
student's expression of their experience
Yeah.
led to like changes actually happening within the university.
Yes.
Policy wise.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
amazing. I'll give you another one. This is
Okay.
a lot more. So one of the things that community that we're in, every year we hold what we call Utah Asia Campus Day at the
Okay.
SSG Landers Baseball Stadium.
Okay.
We have a little baseball club on campus. And so we invited the captain of the club to like be the designated batter. They had me throw the pitch and then he was up there to bat. So he got to walk through the stadium and meet the players and come out the dugout. And for him, it was like the greatest moment of his whole life. It was so fun to watch. I mean, it was great for me too. I loved it. But for him, like to live this sort of experience where he's only dreamt about it, it was so fun.
It's a big experience, especially if you love baseball.
So it was super fun to see it. And so those are a couple of things that we've, so many neat experiences with our students as they progress through their intellectual career and as they
Right.
grow and change. And so some hard ones, lots of hard ones, students struggle, as you might imagine. But for the most part, it's just a really enlightening experience. So it's fun.
Do you find that some students have a hard time adapting to the food?
There's obviously some that would prefer to go grab a burger or something like that. For the most part, the students who come over here self-select into it. Like there's
Right.
something about Korea.
They're gonna like that kimchi no matter what.
Right.
They're gonna
like,
make themselves like it.
They want to come because like this is part of the experience. And one of the things that we do is really push them towards it. Like, look, lean into the experience. Like you have to, because first of all, when are you ever going to get this chance again? Second of all, like if you walk away from here without embracing the culture with both arms, then you've lost some experience. For example, if a student gets to Seoul and they miss the last bus to Songdo, they might call their support person here like, oh, I'm stuck in Seoul. You know what we tell them? Good luck.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. You'll find a way.
That's the best way to assimilate yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
It's part of the learning experience.
It's a big deal. And I remember when I first came, I was 19 years old. I had no idea what was going on. If you don't dive in, it's going to be hard. But if you dive in and enjoy it, it's going to be a fun hard, not just hard.
You haven't really lived in Korea until you missed the bus and you
Yeah.
have to sleep in like Jimjilbak or something, because that has happened to me many times. I know.
Even our son, like who's 17, he was in Seoul. He missed the last bus, and I'm like, figure it out. He said, Dad, just call me a taxi. I'm like, I'm gonna call you a taxi.
All the way to here?
Yeah, figure out how to get back from Seoul. But it's so safe here, and it's so comforting. And for parents back in the United States to send their kids here, Korea is so safe that they don't have to worry about it. When I talk to parents, especially in the States, Salt Lake's a pretty safe city, relatively low crime. But there are places you just don't walk around, and the parents will call like, hey, where do we tell our kids to stay away from? Don't worry about it. Like, Seoul has 10 million people. The whole area has 25 million. Don't worry about it. Like, it's so hard for them to understand. But then their kids get here and they realize it and love it.
When was the first time you ever came to Korea ever?
So the first time I was in Korea was in 1993. I was 19 years old. I was here. A service opportunity came along.
Okay.
I showed up in Korea. I had never been on a plane before. I had never been on an escalator before. I'd lived in a small town in Idaho. It was all brand new to me. I'd seen a subway on television. I had no idea what public transportation was all about. You talk about culture shock. It was just so, I didn't know Korean. I had a couple of months of learning the alphabet and some basic phrases. Like I could ask where the restroom was, important,
Okay.
especially when you're first getting here. I had a few phrases but I didn't understand anything. But they throw you right in, like go learn, live with the people, talk to everybody you can. It was an amazing, amazing experience.
Korea has changed a lot since then, obviously. Even back then, English was nowhere near as
No.
prevalent as it is now.
And to learn, you didn't have Google Translate. You didn't have these tools. So we carried around a Korean English dictionary. You just asked. And I had a little notepad that I carried in my pocket, and I would write down words that I didn't understand, and then I try to learn them and memorize them and talk them out. And so by the end of those 2 years, I was pretty comfortable with the language, at least with the part of it that I was using a lot.
So daily life stuff.
Yeah, daily life stuff. The hardest thing to do was like just jump all in.
Scary,
Yeah, it's
honestly.
so scary, but it was so good for me.
Yeah.
Because I learned a ton about myself. I learned that I could do hard things, you know. But more importantly, I learned that a world out there bigger than what I knew. Outside of kimchi, I didn't know anything about Korea.
Right.
I mean, I went to college, wasn't really thinking about coming back to Korea. Sort of stayed kind of engaged with the community a little bit, but then this opportunity came up in 2020. And
So what's the one thing that you remember doing as soon as you got here?
I distinctly remember getting on a bus from the airport,
Okay.
Gimpo Airport. First time I'd ever been on a public transportation, sitting next to some stranger, trying to speak Korean a little bit, and just being like totally overwhelmed with it. And then I also specifically remember the first time, like that night when we got to where we were going, they had a Korean meal and there was mandu. And I'd never seen it before, I didn't know what it was. You know, a lot of the other stuff, but eating that first Korean meal, I remember, was very, very clear in my mind.
That's the day it started. It's still going strong.
That's right, yeah, no, that's right.
What do you find has been some of the big changes that are like really, really noticeable compared to 1993 and 2024?
But one of the big things is the shift from a tea culture to a coffee culture. Back in the early 90s, I mean, there was tabang everywhere. And there was tea at every meal, and there was tea at every appointment, and it was just tea vending machines. It was just everywhere. And coffee was there, but it wasn't. So that shift from a tea culture to a coffee culture, it was one of the big ones. The other thing that I've seen is softening of the kind of cultural behaviors. How you would interact with somebody older than you has changed a little bit. Just in that they're not quite as rigid as I think they used to be. The food, one of my favorite foods is kalbi, especially with cheese. And tteokbokki with cheese. And basically everything with cheese. Korea didn't have a ton of cheese back in the 90s. But it's definitely different than it was before. That's been a change.
So I heard that you actually live around here.
Yeah.
Can I go visit your house?
Yeah.
Is your family at home? I love
Yeah, my wife and one of my kids will be there.
Okay.
So yeah, we'd love to have you come by. And
How old is your son, right?
So our son who's here is 17.
Okay.
We also have a daughter here. She's 15, but she's at a basketball game
She's
in Daegu.
busy.
So
it'll be cool to meet your family.
yeah,
So,
we'd love to have you
let's
come
please.
by.
Yeah.
Okay,
All
let's
right,
do
well,
it.
let's
Yeah.
go.
All right.